It's an enormous joy to be able to introduce this wonderful young lady, Puja Verma. She comes from India, from the east of India, and many of you will know that I have an Indian family background on my father's side, so I think it's a shout out for all the Indians. That's a billion of you in the hall. Thank you. As we sat and talked, I was beginning to discover that Puja here has decided to make a lot of determined commitments in her life, which, given what I'll tell you that she now does, many would say she hasn't got time for that. To bring her up to speed, she's working for Barclays, fantastic bank, great organization, wonderful company. She's in the investment side of Barclays, in the mergers and acquisitions aspect of Barclays, and that means that she has to work 15 hours a day, she says, very often. She's in at 9:30 in the morning. She doesn't get out of the building sometimes till 11 o'clock at night. She's doing that 5 days a week, and she has work at the weekends. But she's decided that she's going to take on an additional commitment of being a mentor to young kids between the sort of 12 to 14-year age gap, because she wants to help them develop their soft skills. And she's going to make those extra commitment hours at the weekend. Now, this isn't a new start for Puja, because when she was at university, and she's lived in India and she's lived in Malaysia, but when she was at university, she was part of the Enactus team, which is amazing, and many of you will know about Enactus. And Enactus is a network of students and universities around the world committed to social engagement projects. And she started a social engagement project with the rickshaw people of Delhi, working with 87 rickshaw communities, helping them to get access to own their own rickshaws. So previously, they used to have to rent them, and therefore the rent money would simply go back to the owners, and they never had an asset of their own. But because she worked in developing a microfinance solution for them, they were able to purchase the rickshaws, become asset owners, and then they own the income that they get from their rickshaws. And she says that every time she goes back to the rickshaw community in India, and she often comes across them when she's in Delhi, they'd love to give her free rides, but she won't let them give her free rides because she thinks it's important she continues to build their economies and build their futures. So here is a woman of very high integrity, very deep passion and commitment. When we were talking earlier, I was looking at her hands, and I said, "Oh, so you're married as well," because she has a ring on the marriage finger, as it were. And I said, "So you're married as well," thinking, how does she cope with 16 hours at Barclays and being married and mentor and everything else? She said, "No, it's actually a promise ring." So I said, "A promise for what?" And she said, "A promise that she will be always true to the values and virtues she holds, and a promise to be abstinent until she's married." This is a great woman.
Thank you, Lord. Thanks for that amazing introduction. Swadhyaya, Thailand. I take this opportunity to thank you for your amazing hospitality so far. Good morning, everyone. For most of us who have well-paying, secure jobs, it is very difficult to imagine that about 90% of the employed population is struggling to fight oppression and exploitation. With a population of about 1.28 billion people and scarce resources, India's informal sector has no mechanism to implement labor laws and provide workers with a better lifestyle. You don't have to look far to find people who are fighting a constant battle to make a living. One day, while traveling back from college to the metro station, I struck a casual conversation with a cycle rickshaw puller and discovered that their rickshaws were rented for about $1 or $2 from contractors who own about hundreds of these rickshaws. When you consider that each rickshaw puller makes $7 to $10 a day, has a family to support in the city, and an obligation to send back money to the villages, 20% was a sizable amount. To give you some perspective, $2 is enough to provide for 2 meals for all his family for a day. I was motivated to help the rickshaw puller and hundreds of others who were facing the same problem. Brainstorming with a team of students in a social entrepreneurship society in college, I led the team to establish a sustainable microfinance model to enable the rickshaw pullers to own their own rickshaws. The project was called Life on Wheels. We found some willing rickshaw pullers who had some form of basic identity document, such as a voter ID card. First, we made them financially literate enough to understand that they were being exploited. Then, we partnered with local Indian banks to get 0% interest loans for about $170 per puller to buy a new rickshaw. We helped the rickshaw pullers obtain loans because many of them were uneducated or illiterate. We understood the process well, and the bank officials took us seriously. The new rickshaws were customized to make them stand out from the generic rickshaws on the road. They had provisions to display adverts on the back of the rickshaws to provide for additional revenue. We had dustbins installed, which reduced litter on campus, and the pullers carried newspapers for all the commuters, just to add a touch of differentiation. We provided the rickshaw pullers with uniforms and ID cards, which associated them with our organization and provided them with a sense of belongingness. This gave them the self-esteem and confidence to stand up to the oppressive contractors and local authorities who would often take advantage of the position of power. We created a brand, publicized the new rickshaw service, and received a lot of media attention. This branded service meant pullers no longer allowed people to haggle over the price of a ride, and they became the #1 choice for most of the campus students. I'm quite proud to say that 85 rickshaw pullers took part, and this project directly impacted over 400 lives, including those of their families. Their income increased by 20%, and the overall financial impact of the project was about $50,000, including additional advertising revenue and savings on the higher costs. 87% of the loans were repaid, and this is one of the highest repayment rates that we have seen for microfinance in the country. It drew support. It drew support and recognition from the Chief Minister of the state herself. Many of the original rickshaw pullers have earned enough to buy a more dignified life. Some have bought their own motorized rickshaws. Some have moved elsewhere to live a life which is better. But for the few who still remain on campus, I'm still greeted with the widest smile when I visit them, and they refuse to take the fare from the metro station, the college campus. Delegates, I urge you, when you go back, take a look around. There are thousands of local street sellers, newspaper vendors, flower boys and girls in your local community. Ask yourselves, what are their labor rights? How could you give back these people their right and respect? What are you going to do? Thank you.